All right, today's quest is to continue factoring, but this time we're factoring in the form of ax squared plus bx plus c. One thing different than what we've done in our previous lessons is we've had x squared plus bx plus c. This time we have a coefficient of x squared. Let's see what that looks like. In our essential understanding, you can write some trinomials in this form. Ax squared plus bx plus c is a product of two binomials. So that's ultimately what we're looking for is our two binomials. Consider the trinomial 6x squared plus 23x plus 7. To factor it, we need to think of 23x as 2x plus 21x. So we're looking for a sum that's going to get me 23x. And so I can rewrite it this way, 6x squared plus the 2x plus the 21x plus 7, which is going to equal this side. I can then factor out, so I look at the red here, and I can factor out a 2x out of that, so I have 2x times 3x plus 1. In the blue, I can do the same thing. I take the 2x plus 7 and I factor out a 7, and I have 7 times 3x plus 1. And in this case, I have 3x plus 1. That's one of my terms, and I'm multiplying it by the 2x plus the 7, and that's how I get my first binomial. Let's practice this out a little bit. You'll start to see how this happens. So we're going to factor out 5x squared plus 11x plus 2. So let's start off with all the positive ones. Everything's nice and positive. Let's stay positive. So we're going to find the factors of a times c. So this is my a, and this is my c. So we're going to find the factors of a times c that have a sum of b. Okay, well, a times c is going to be 10. So that's where I get my 5 times 2. It's my 10. And b is going to be 11. So we need to find the positive because my 10 is positive. I want to find all the positive factors of 10 that ultimately have a sum of 11. So my factors of 10 is 1 and 10. 2 times 5, and when I add those together I get 11 and I get 7. So this is what I'm working with. I'm going to be working with the factors of 10 of 1 and 10. So this tells me I can break this out as 5x squared plus x plus 10x plus 2. Here are my different pieces. Now I can do some grouping here, and I can then factor some elements out here. I can see I have x times 5x plus 1 plus, and these guys here on this side I can factor out a 2, and I end up with 5x plus 1. And as you can see here, there's one of my binomials, 5x plus 1. And my second one can be found right here, x plus 2. And they're my two parts of this. This is the two binomials that make up this trinomial. All right, I want to leave these notes right here so you can use them. But why don't you go ahead and press pause and you try it out on 6x squared plus 13x plus 5. All right, this is what I got on the got it. My binomial, my product of my binomials is 3x plus 5 and 2x plus 1. And for the reasoning, in ax squared plus bx plus c, suppose ac, so a times c is positive, and b here is negative. What do you know about the factors of a and c? That tells us that the factors have to be both negative for that to happen. Okay, so that tells us that a must be a negative, c must be a negative, so that when you add them together, b will stay negative. Like, we'll try that out here. Factoring when AC is negative, when the product of A and C. So find the factors of AC that has the sum of B. So A times C, and then those together, those factors equal 4. So AC, so 3 times 15 is negative 45. B is 4. So AC is negative 45. So that tells us that if this is going to be positive, B is going to be positive. That tells us if AC is negative, so the product of the two is negative, one of them is going to be negative, one of them is going to be positive, and it looks like one of the bigger one the bigger product, or the bigger factor, that's the word I'm looking for, of 45 is going to be the positive number. Let's see what happens. So factors of negative 45 that have the sum of 4. So I'm looking through my list here. One's positive, one's negative. Which one's going to get us that the sum of them is 4? Okay, well, not this one. That won't do it, and that won't do it. And you'll start seeing it earlier. Like, we know those are too far apart. So if its sum is going to be 4, your factors are going to have to be close. So it's going to be the 5 and the 9. But this is the one that plays out for us, the 9 being the bigger factor. So we can do now step 2. I'm going to break this into the two pieces. So 3x squared minus 5x plus 9x minus 15. Let's factor out these two binomials. So I look here, I have 3x squared minus 5x. The only thing I can factor out is the x. Interesting. And looks here like the only thing I can factor out is a 3. And I'm going to end up with 3x minus 5. And that's working out for us because we can see my first binomial is x plus 3. And my second one is 3x minus 5. Now, why don't you go ahead and try this out? Either got it, you can press pause and take 10x squared plus 31x minus 14 and go ahead and factor that out into two binomials. All right, how'd you do? So for this guy, I was looking for 31. That's ultimately what I was looking for as I was working with the factors of negative 140. And that being the case, I knew one of them had to be negative and one of them had to be positive. And as I worked through them, I pretty much just tried to figure out what's going to be nice and close. Actually, for 31, I had to know which one was going to give me some good distance to give me 31 apart from each other, like negative 4 and 35. Now we're going to try applying a trigonometrical. We'll do that someday, not right now. We got some factoring here. The area of a rectangle is 2x squared minus 13x minus 7. So both these are negative. Something to keep an eye on. Dimensions of the rectangle. So we're going to again find the factors of a and c. Those multiplied together. So we've got 8 times c is negative 14, and they got to give me a sum of negative 13. Okay, so we're looking for that negative 4 with a sum of 13. So the factor is negative 14, and because it's negative 14, one's going to be positive, and one's going to be negative, and here are my options. And I'm looking for one that is going to have a sum of negative 13. So that tells me that one of them is going to be more negative than the other, which puts me right here. So let's factor this out. We know that it's 2x squared, and I'm going to use my two pieces here. So it's plus the x, which I can get from here, and then it is minus 14x, which I got from here, and the rest of the trinomial. Breaking it into its two pieces here. I can see that, I guess I can grab that negative with it, and we can play with that later. I'll grab that negative with it, and we'll play with that. Okay, so we've got, I can pull out an x, and then I've got 2x plus 1. And this guy right here, I'm going to add, now I'm going to work with my negatives here, so I can see that I can pull out a negative 7. And I could, again, watching my negatives here, so I'm going to pull out a negative 7, and I can see that I've got 2x, and it's going to be plus 1. I'm going to end up with x minus 7 times 2x plus 1. Let's see how we did. 2x plus 1 is one of them, and x minus 7. So, as you can see from the beginning problem here, when both of them are negative, we really got to keep an eye on those negatives. Is it possible for the dimension of the rectangle to be this or this? All right, why don't you go ahead, the got it section, press pause, and you give it a try. To 8x squared plus 22x plus 15. Ah, both yours are negative. Lucky. All right, press pause and give it a try. All right, I found it to be 2x plus 3 and 4x plus 5 are the two possible dimensions of this rectangle. To factor a polynomial completely, first factor out the greatest common factor of the polynomial's terms. Then factor out the remaining polynomial until it's written as a product of polynomials that cannot be factored any further. So we are factoring this down the smallest possible. So let's start off by factoring out the greatest common factor out of all of those. So we factored out a 3 out of all this. Okay, so now that we're looking at this piece right here, so now we're going to factor out 6x squared minus 11x plus 4. We know that a and c multiplied together gets me to 24, and b is negative 11. So I need to find negative factors of 24 to have a sum of negative 11. Okay, so my factors of 24, 1 and 24, and 12, 38. Okay, because these both are positive, and we end up with a negative, so that's why we have a negative. So we know a negative times a negative will get me a positive, on both these being positive. This is how that's going to work. And I'm looking for one of the factors when combined together, you end up with a negative. So the 1 and the 24 are not going to do it. The 2 and the 12 get me to negative 14, so we're getting close. There's my negative 11. So right here. We now rewrite the term as bx. Let's see. Let's take a look at what's behind here. Unlock. There she is. Look at that. Okay, so here's our different terms. Okay, 6x squared minus 3x minus 8x plus 4. And then, just like we would normally do, we would factor out inside here. Okay, we're going to leave our negative. So we factored out a 3x. So we got 3x times 2x minus 1 minus, here's our, we factored out a 4. That's a 2x minus 1. And at this point, we're working with brackets because there's parentheses strewn all over the place. And we were able to do it this way. 3x minus 4. There's my 3x minus 4. And 2x minus 1. My 2x minus 1. All right. I want you to give it a try. It's kind of like a double factoring. Why don't you try it out on 8x squared minus 36x minus 20. And so first of all, see, is there anything that you can factor out of all of that? That's your first step. I'll scroll this down so you can look at the different steps. There you go. Give it a try. All right, take a look at this. Look it through. That's some good stuff. Press pause and take a look if you need to. All right, guys. I'm going to go and see how many hot dogs I can eat before I just literally smell like a hot dog.